It's 3:12 a.m. on the 18th of November 2025. The night over the Eastern Caribbean is quiet, dark, and almost empty. Then, everything changes in one violent heartbeat. From a hidden runway on Vieques Island, a US B-21 Raider blasts into the sky with a steep climb that shakes the ground. No warning, no flight plan, no radio check. Just the sound of engines pushed to the limit and a single coded message from command. Priority Z. Launch now. Inside the control room, the crew hears only alarms and a short radio call. A voice tight with stress. Shadow 1 is airborne. Full stealth. Do not lose us. The room freezes for a second. A launch like this never happens unless something is deeply wrong. As the B-21 rises fast, 3 F-35 escorts move in behind it like shadows, silent and invisible. The whole formation heads straight toward the north coast of Venezuela. Operators on the ground can't see the full picture yet. All they know is that a black triangle just vanished into the night at a speed that should not be possible, and no one can explain why. The next 30 seconds will decide if this is a simple emergency or the start of something far bigger. The reason this launch shook the entire region is simple. A B-21 Raider does not take off like that unless lives, intelligence, or national security are at real risk. Vieques Island is close to the busiest air defense corridor Venezuela controls, a stretch of coastline where every radar runs non-stop and every unknown signal is checked. When a stealth bomber rises at full power near that zone, it changes the balance for everyone watching. For the US, this area is a key lane for fast response missions. From Puerto Rico to the Southern Caribbean, aircraft move through a narrow space where timing and distance decide everything. A flight that breaks the silence at 3 a.m. signals a threat that cannot wait. And for the people inside the control center, there is no room for error. They know Venezuela runs one of the densest alert networks in the region, with radars that track even small changes in the sky. Flying a B-21 close to that line is not a drill. It is a message. For Venezuela, the moment matters for a different reason. Their operators have trained for years to read the sky and protect their coast. When a large stealth target appears and disappears this fast, it forces decisions no one wants to make. Do they prepare missiles? Do they scramble fighters? Or do they wait and risk losing the chance to react? Every choice comes with consequences, and every second feels heavier than the last. For the crews on the ground in Vieques, this night was not just about a plane leaving the runway. It was about a mission they could not explain, a sense that something important was moving through the dark, and they were only seeing one small part of it. And as the B-21 pushed north toward Venezuelan airspace, the stakes rose with every mile. Both sides knew one mistake could turn a silent mission into a regional crisis. If you were in that control room, would you see this as defense or provocation? Press 1 if it feels like protection, press 9 if you think it was a direct challenge, and subscribe to follow how this tension escalates. The first sign of trouble came minutes after the B-21 broke through the clouds. At 3:26 a.m., a single dot flickered on the Book M2E radar in Barcelona, Venezuela. At first, it looked like noise. Then the operator zoomed in. The dot held shape, moved fast, and carried almost no heat. Anything that cold at that speed was no ordinary aircraft. Inside the Venezuelan air defense room, voices dropped. One officer ordered, "Confirm track." Another checked civilian logs, nothing matched. No cargo plane, no jet, no training flight. Empty sky on paper, but a ghost on radar. A senior commander issued the first major order: raise coastal alert. No assumptions. The room snapped from routine to full readiness. The dot climbed sharply. Update after update showed a steeper angle, as if trying to reach the radar ceiling before anyone reacted. A technician murmured, "That's not patrol." His supervisor said nothing. Both knew only stealth or classified aircraft moved like that. Far above, the B-21 crew felt the tension too. Cockpit lights were dim, the pilot keeping calm as he checked spacing with the F-35 escorts. Behind him, the fighter scanned for any sign of challenge. hearing only the hum of engines and quiet system clicks. Across the Venezuelan coast, radars in Puerto La Cruz, Cumaná, and Carúpano confirmed the same contact. 3 sensors meant it wasn't a glitch. A command officer pressed the mic and gave the order no one wanted at this hour. Activate Phase 6 alert. 1 step below armed engagement. At Barcelona and Maracay, Su-30 Mk2 crews sprinted across the tarmac. Engines thundered as pilots strapped in, waiting for the final green light, but it never came. The radar picture began to distort. First small grains of static, then thick waves of interference washed across the screens. One by one, tracking feeds collapsed. Operators tapped controls, adjusted gain, switched frequencies, nothing returned. Then realization hit. This wasn't failure. The static was too clean, too uniform. It was controlled. Electronic warfare. The B-21 wasn't just hiding. It was erasing Venezuelan vision sector by sector. A young operator whispered the truth aloud: "We're blind." For 19 long minutes, the entire coastline lost its picture. No altitude, no heading, no confirmation. And in a night like this, silence was more dangerous than any alarm. The escalation began the moment the radar picture returned weak, distorted, but enough to show one fact. The unknown aircraft was still sliding along the edge of Venezuelan airspace. It wasn't crossing the line, but it was close enough to force every commander into a narrow decision zone. At this range, a tiny drift could spark a crisis. Inside the command center, officers spoke in sharp lines. Track unstable. Range shifting. Possible climb. No one saw the full picture, but pressure climbed fast. Book M2E crews braced over their launch tubes. S-300 VM operators in Maracay checked systems non-stop. They were seconds from the last stage before firing. One wrong interpretation could trigger something irreversible. On the runways, Su-30 Mk2 fighters waited with engines hot. Pilots listened to fragmented updates. One said quietly, "If it turns toward us, we won't have time." His wingmen replied, "We follow orders." They knew they were reacting, not controlling. High above, the B-21 formation held tight. The Raider stayed just far enough to avoid provoking a direct challenge, but close enough to force constant tracking. F-35 escorts made small altitude shifts, staying invisible. In the cockpit, the B-21 pilot watched the electronic warfare sweep cycle masking altitude, feeding false tracks, bending radar returns. For a few tense minutes, the sky went eerily quiet. Operators stared at flickering blips, some showing impossible climbs, others sudden stops. A senior technician finally understood. They're saturating us. The B-21 wasn't hiding. It was reshaping the entire radar picture, making every station see something different. Command froze. A wrong move could mean an unauthorized launch or a confrontation they couldn't manage. The room waited for clarity that never came. Then the next shock appeared. A new, strong signal west of the original track. Some thought it was a second aircraft. Others said it was a decoy born from the same electronic warfare. The uncertainty locked everyone in place. If it was real, they needed to act. If fake, reacting could ignite a fight they weren't ready for. Moments like this aren't decided by confidence, but by fear of choosing wrong. Both sides held their positions, watching a sky full of shadows. If you think that second radar signal was real, press 1. If you think it was a decoy, press 9 and subscribe for the next part. The twist came when the radar picture finally cleared. As operators tried to decode the strange second signal, the original track, the one they thought was the B-21, did something impossible. It stopped. For 5 full seconds, the dot froze at high altitude. No aircraft on Earth can hover like that, and everyone knew it. A commander leaned forward. "Run diagnostics!" The technician checked same result. The dot was holding steady. Then the truth snapped into place. This wasn't the Raider. It was a false return from electronic warfare. The real B-21 had already slipped west through a narrow radar gap. Frustration hit the room. They had chased the wrong target and lost the real one. No one wanted to give the next order. Reacting to a decoy could start an international incident. Hesitating could let a stealth bomber get too close. High above, the B-21 stayed calm. Shadow 1 repositioning, the pilot said, guiding the aircraft through the corridor that kept it invisible. The F-35 seconds shifted slowly with him, careful not to light up Venezuelan sensors. Their mission was simple: keep the path open, keep the raider unseen. Then a faint energy spike appeared on a secondary screen. Weak, almost buried in noise but pointing west, the same direction the decoy had frozen. A young technician whispered, "That's the real one." But without a clean lock, the command center couldn't launch fighters or authorize a missile track. A single wrong move could start something no one could control. This was the real turning point. Venezuela wasn't struggling with a fast aircraft, but with a smart one. The B-21 wasn't just hiding. It was shaping what the defenders believed, guiding their reaction step by step. And every minute it stayed in that shadow zone, the tension climbed. If you were the commander, would you chase the frozen signal or the faint spike? The climax hit when the faint radar spike finally sharpened. It wasn't perfect, but it was clear enough to show movement fast, high, and heading deeper into Venezuelan coverage. For the first time all night, the air defense crews had something solid. A senior officer raised his voice just enough to steady the room. "All stations, track the western contact. No hesitation." On the runways, Su-30 Mk2 pilots sat strapped in with engines hot. They waited for a launch order that kept slipping away. They knew what it meant if they took off. They might face a stealth bomber they couldn't see. One pilot muttered to his wingman, "If it spots us first, we're done." The answer came back low and flat. "Then don't give it a reason." High above them, the B-21 stayed quiet and steady. The pilot watched the instruments while the electronic warfare systems pulsed again, throwing a new layer of false signals across the Venezuelan radar picture. The F-35 escorts moved outward, guarding the edges of the formation. The raider adjusted altitude inch by inch, widening the gap it needed to escape without triggering a clear lock. Down below, the radar screens turned into a storm of half-truths. Some returns showed the aircraft climbing, others showed it dropping. A few looked like it was turning back toward the coast. "None of this matches," a technician said, fighting the controls. But he didn't stop. He kept searching for a clean track. Then, for a brief moment, they got one. A clean return flashed. The aircraft was turning north, away from the coast. The entire room froze. If that return was real, the B-21 was leaving. A commander stepped forward, eyes fixed on the line. "Hold positions. No engagement," he said. But the picture broke again before anyone could confirm it. The clean track split into two, then three, then disappeared under a new wave of electronic noise. Su-30 crews, still waiting for orders, could only listen as control centers argued over which signal was real. Inside the B-21, the pilot kept his voice calm. "Shadow 1 is clear. Maintain climb." The raider pushed higher, into a layer where most radar beams curved below it. The F-35 seconds tightened formation behind him and followed into the last stretch of the corridor. A few minutes later, every Venezuelan radar feed went quiet. The sky showed nothing. The B-21 was gone. If you think Venezuela should have launched anyway, press 1. If holding back was the right call, press 9 and subscribe for the final part. When the radar picture cleared, every Venezuelan command room understood the same thing at the same time. The B-21 was gone, already high and far to the north. For almost an hour, their strongest radars had chased shadows and broken signals. Now the sky looked normal again, but nothing about the night felt normal. At the Barcelona and Maracay bases, Su-30 pilots stayed in their cockpits even after the alert faded. Engines cooled, but no one moved until command finally told them to stand down. Some wished they had launched, others were glad they hadn't. But all of them knew the truth. If the B-21 had turned toward the coast, they would not have stopped it. In Caracas, leaders reviewed the timeline. Every report showed the same pattern. The US mission was planned and controlled from the first minute. The B-21's route and the electronic warfare blackout pointed to something bigger than a simple flight. 19 minutes of radar silence proved how wide the tech gap really was. For the US, the flight sent a clear signal. A stealth aircraft could take off from the Caribbean, move near a high-alert defense zone, survive detection attempts, and exit without a fight. Speed and stealth won the night. Venezuela tried to answer quickly. Bases raised readiness levels. Radar crews practiced again. Missile teams stayed on extended duty. The official message was strong: "We are ready." But many inside knew the night exposed weaknesses they couldn't ignore. By sunrise, the Caribbean looked calm, but everyone watching understood that whatever the B-21 carried was important enough to risk a midnight launch and a regional scare.